Hi, Andrew.
Hey, Nishka, how are you?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Got a lot of work done today.
Oh, that's great. It's a good Thursday then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I really wanted to talk to you today, and I knew that anyone who's listening in would love to hear from you. And that's because you're at this unique intersection in your life where you're doing a master's degree and
Yeah,
you're an entrepreneur and you're a UX expert.
yeah,
So there's a lot of things going on. So talk to me a bit about your master's degree and entrepreneurship. How's it been going?
yeah, sure. So as far as entrepreneurship is concerned, I've been starting businesses, whether it was like a lemonade stand when I was a kid or printing t-shirts in middle school. Like I've always been involved in some sort of business endeavor. So that hasn't changed throughout any of my schooling. And luckily with the master's program I'm in now, it's completely asynchronous. So if I need to, take an extra day and work on the business, I can do that. And then I'll just have to maybe pull an all-nighter and finish one of my papers. But that's very freeing, and I'm very lucky to have that program.
What
Yeah.
school is it at?
It's at ASU. Yep. So it's ASU online.
Okay. Well, that's great. Is how did you find out about that master's degree?
Yeah, it was honestly the only place that I found that specifically mentioned user experience or even had a field related outside of human computer interaction, because what I want to do is more linked with the like individual psychology than big data in human computer interaction. I was either going to get a psychology degree, or if someone had a specific user experience degree, that's where I wanted to get my master's, and luckily ASU had one.
That's great. And for those who are listening in who don't know the difference, what is the difference between the individual psychology of things and the big data from human computer interaction?
Yeah, so for one, human computer interaction has been around way longer than user experience, right? When Don Norman coined the term user experience, he was working as a human computer interaction specialist. That was his transition. The human computer interaction is much more centered around data and numbers and statistics, whereas I would say the individual psychology or user experience is more geared around these high level goals and taking data from users, just talking to them and kind of empathizing with them instead of recording only like task completion time and stuff like that. It's more of a mix of psychology and statistics instead of purely just spreadsheets.
Right. That makes sense. So it's more qualitative.
Yes, exactly.
It adds context.
Absolutely.
So about your business, I know I've heard of a lot of UX consulting firms, but
Correct.
what is missing out there in the UX consulting space? Is there a gap that your business is trying to fill, or
Yeah.
do you do things differently?
Yeah, so we pride ourselves in doing things differently. When you look at a lot of these UX consulting companies or maybe consulting companies in general, it feels like a lot of their strategy involves being as vague as possible until the end of the project and then defining their success in whatever they just did, right? So they jump in and try to get a deliverable across the table as soon as possible and then say, oh, here's the things that we did because of it. We like to work the opposite. So we start out talking to the business and the users and getting a list of key goals that we want to achieve in the project. From there, we take those goals and break them down into objectives. So basically just lower level goals. And from there, we actually turn them into key measures, statistics. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the project, we have this giant collection of data proving that we accomplished the goals that we set out to. So kind of like what we just talked about in the human computer interaction, it does involve a lot of statistics and data, whereas a lot of these other UX consulting firms kind of forgot where we came from and don't really include as much data and hard statistics anymore. And we like to.
So you're more top down.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. All right. And it also sounds, the way you're explaining it, it sounds like that would be more advantageous for the business and for
Yeah.
you. It probably makes life easier to have a skeleton and then color it in, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah, exactly. We, especially for even for our sake, selfishly, it's a lot better because later down the line, if the project's almost finished, there's not as much of a risk of stakeholders changing things around and saying, no, we actually wanted this goal, because it's all documented. So that definitely has saved us before.
That's great. Are you seeing any special requests from clients related to AI tools or AI centric projects?
Yeah, yeah. So the two we get the most often are like customization wizards. So something that will almost like a combination of a chatbot and a quiz. It'll talk you through, oh, describe your home, and we're going to figure out what solar panel we need to prescribe you. That sort of stuff. And the other thing is just pure plug and play chatbots. And something I'm seeing that I hope will change, and I know will change as AI progresses, is right now businesses' objectives, or at least the clients we're dealing with, is just to get AI somewhere in their systems, somewhere on their projects, because that's the differentiator, right? My competitor does not use AI. I do, therefore I'm a bar above. And hopefully, as this proliferates a little bit, the bar will soon just be higher quality AI, and
Mhm.
it will get more focused on providing a good user experience. Whereas right now, it's just kind of binary: do I have it or not? Unfortunately.
Right, right. It reminds me of the dot-com era
Mm.
when people would just have a website for their business, whether they needed one or not,
Yes.
and would have a paywall, whether they needed it or not.
Yes.
And so there's actually an article out there, maybe you've read it, and this article, it's titled, "Should you even use AI? And
Mm,
when to know if it's a good idea to use AI or not."
for
And
sure.
so I'm sure that there have been situations where you and your team are thinking, maybe you don't need AI.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
For, if you're a local lawn care company that brings in a few thousand a month, it's not worth it to invest these giant tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars into creating a custom AI experience. Most of the time, a form will do.
Yes.
Yeah,
Makes sense. And you've worked with a lot of companies, you've done a lot of individual projects for companies. I'm sure you're
sure.
doing a lot of projects at school, and you probably did during undergrad as well. I always like to share something funny with our listeners. Can you think of a engaging or even a funny story from when you were running a study or dealing with a client?
Well, I think I think the funniest or the strangest thing that happened was I had a client back when I was working at my last agency, and they came in wanting user experience, user experience, user experience. It's all they talked about. We want the best user experience imaginable. And so we go out and we invest all these resources into researching the users and talking with their prospective clients, and just we go the whole 9 yards. We get to the end of it, and it turns out their definition of user experience was just, we want a something that is pretty. We just want a mock-up, really. And so when we show them all this effort we had done and all of this research, which we had been updating them throughout the process, they were very confused. And so that one stuck with me. That was a few years ago now.
Yeah.
That's still stuck
Yeah.
with
I'm sure that's a common one, and it's also extremely frustrating.
me. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
imagine for them too. It's not just for us. It's
Yeah.
something that I see with, whether it's other agencies or other professionals or just anybody related to the design industry. They're quick to put something that is artistic and positive into the UX bucket, right? If you make a mock-up that is very pretty, they're quick to say this is a great user experience. Those two are not one and the same, right? You can have something that is beautiful and even fits the brand guidelines and people may even like, but to say that is a great user experience, or it's, we want a very good user experience, they're two different things, really.
Yeah. And I think there's one UX principle that a lot of people who know about the UX field or are in the UX field have just taken and they run with it. And that's the principle of the aesthetic usability
Yes,
effect,
yes,
where they
100.
think, oh, if it's beautiful, it works.
Yeah,
And UX is about making a button green or making a font bigger. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused, because that's unfortunately the kind of PR that UX gets as well.
yes. Yes. And hopefully, this in some small way changes a little bit of that, right? If we can affect, 200 designers out there and change their way, that I will be satisfied. The thing with the heuristic about the aesthetic usability, there's a reason there's 9, 10 other heuristics, right? It's just one drop in a bucket. It's not the whole thing.
Right, right. I think what Apple did was Apple really magnified the aesthetic usability
Mm,
effect,
mhm.
but it has all the other heuristics playing in big ways in the background. It just doesn't advertise it.
Yes. I think good usability, you won't notice, right?
Yeah.
Whereas something that is very pretty or aesthetic, it's the first thing you're going to experience. If you have a good user experience in your platform or program, users shouldn't notice. They should just feel good after using it. That's my
Right. No, I agree. I think it was a professor who told me once that no feedback is good feedback.
yeah. Yes. Well said.
Okay. So I've been stalking you a bit online.
Okay.
I
Cool.
saw your Medium profile, and
Yeah.
I found that along with being a dynamic entrepreneur and a grad student, you're also a systems thinker. And
Yes.
you have a lot of concepts and articles up on Medium. So let's dive into some of those.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as like an overview of my mission and why I like started Design for Humans, why I got into the UX design space in general, and what we were just talking about, I think that the PR centered around user experience is a little misguided and often too nebulous. And so my main mission in life, right, the thing I get out of bed for is to change the way that people view UX design. I think that we are fundamentally off center, and just bringing it back in any way I can is kind of my objective. So going off of some of these systems or principles, guidelines, the most recent one that I published was the 3 Ps of anticipatory design. You read it, we talked about this. It is essentially about an easy way to incorporate AI into complex experiences, right? So for the listeners, listening in, I'll give a quick overview. In the onset of user experience, the interactions, the websites, the programs were very simple, linear, and often uniform between user to user, right?
Mhm.
Go onto a website, you click a few buttons, and it was the same for everybody. But as we get more analytics, as we uncover more data, as we get more proficient at uncovering data, users expect more customization, right? So the example I like to use is if you're on Netflix and you start typing something in, you're expecting it to give you a suggestion of like, here, you probably want to watch House MD, right? And so anticipatory design has 3 legs, the 3 Ps. It is predict, provide, perfect. So the prediction aspect is just saying after a user does something so many amount of times, we
Mhm.
need to predict and show them a path to continue that suggested action, right? So again, if they're
Right.
watching House MD every Wednesday, we probably want to predict, hey, it's Wednesday, 8 p.m. They're going to get on and watch House MD. Okay,
Mhm.
that's the first part, taking that data and being able to use artificial intelligence to summarize that. The second part, the provide, is a balance between getting in the user's way and providing them a meaningful suggestion, right? So
Okay.
let's say we're 100% confident, 100% that they want to watch House MD, which will never be 100%.
Mhm.
You would want to have a giant button that says watch House MD, and it's the only option on the page.
Right.
Obviously, we can't do that. We need to have a balance. So where do we strike on the spectrum from giant House MD button to it's just in with the other shows? And that's
Right.
what provide.
Yeah. And that's the really fine balance between customization and personalization.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Customization is you're making it easier for them to customize what they want to do, but personalization is you learning about that user
Yes, definitely.
and predicting what they might want to choose. And sometimes, you get too customized and then people say, I got to select 15 things before I can do what I want to do.
Yes.
And I don't want to select anything. But then personalization takes away that freedom that they have to customize the interface.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And,
Yeah.
and there's, as you said, there's advantages to both. And so this is just the balance between them. And
Yeah.
then the last step, very simply, is just having some way for the system to receive feedback. Very basic. If we give you a suggestion, if we say, hey, you probably want to watch House MD, were we right or not? And if they say yes, we feed that into the algorithm. If they say no, we feed that into the algorithm. And that's it, very simply. That is the 3 Ps of anticipatory design. And it is simplistic on purpose. I want these methods or findings or teachings or whatever you want to call it to be very easy to digest
Mhm.
and not try to be overcomplicated in nature. So I hope I did that in the article.
No, no, I think you definitely did. I think you did. I think I read the article and I thought, wow, now I'm gonna go through life. I'm gonna walk on the street looking at products thinking, oh, predict or
Yeah, yeah, great.
yeah.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Okay. You're also working on something a little more detailed, a little more articulate. You're working on a version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yes.
but your own version of it, like a UX hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So exactly as you said, the UX hierarchy of needs, user experience hierarchy of needs.
Mhm.
This list, this pyramid of needs, I am catering specifically to business owners. When we get a client coming in the door, we see the same issues over and over again, right? A lot of the issues we're seeing are prioritization, not being in the right order, right? We want to start out with the super high fidelity mockup, and then we're going to go talk to users.
Mhm.
Really basic. You just need to switch those. So the hierarchy of needs is just the order that you have to take certain user experience actions in order to have a fulfilling or complete user experience, right? So the bottom of the pyramid is very simple, almost a little bit of a joke. Talk to your users. That's the first thing. It's just you need to talk to them. And surveys could supplement it, but ideally face-to-face interactions actually able to empathize with them is what we're searching for. And
Right.
I have a little bit on why, how to do that, some tips for each of these sections. So that's the first one.
Okay.
And the second one is taking that conversation, taking all the data that you gathered from talking with people and kind of grouping it, creating personas, as you and I would call it. But the key things you want to identify are what are my user types trying to do? What are their goals?
Mhm.
What are they actually doing? What are their daily tasks? How often do they get on the website? And what's getting in the way? What are their pain points for each of the user types? Once you've identified that, I would say that's the base of a good persona. And anything else would be nice, but it's not necessary in order for the hierarchy.
Okay.
So once you've talked to your users, once you have the personas, next you want to figure out how to optimize for their goals, right? So if a user gets on, and let's continue the House MD example, they want to watch their favorite show on Netflix, I think. What is the best way that we can get them to watch that show without conflicting with the other users and their goals, right? So you take
Okay.
all the users and all the goals. What is the combination that we can do for a user experience or for a user journey that best fits all of them? And that's kind of
Okay.
what the next step is. And it talks about user journey specifically, user flows, process of wireframing and testing. Uh,
Right.
and then from there, only after we've done these 3 steps do we touch on UI. So then we've talked to our users, we've kind of categorized and figured out what they're looking for. We've planned out what the system is going to look like, what they're going to do. And now we're touching on what it's going to look like. Finally, we're touching about colors and the cool stuff.
Right.
And once you have the user interface down, once you have your text aligned and it's all pretty and it reflects the brand, then we go on to the last step, which is, you're in the 99th percentile now. If you have these 4 steps, you're far above your competitors. The last
Mhm.
step is polish. This is newer concepts like gamification or things like loading animations and just little user delight as often as possible. And it just talks about how to implement that, best practices, maybe when companies go too far and the downsides of that. But essentially, that's the list for business owners. You just go start from the bottom and work your way up.
Yeah.
And it's if you can accomplish all of these, you don't even need me. If you can do this list, you're well on your way.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, wow, wow. I love this. In
thank you.
fact, I almost feel like taking this pyramid, freezing it, and then dunking it into water because it sounds like the tip of the iceberg is what people see a lot. That's where they
Yeah,
see the polish and the UI.
yeah.
But the first 3 steps that you talked about are transparent to the user. They don't know what's going on.
That's
And
that's a
so,
great analogy. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Because I think the iceberg is a fantastic example. That's perfect. Because if you're not in the design industry already, if you're
Mhm.
a business owner, what we were talking about earlier, when you get onto a website, you're only taking in what you can see and what you're dealing with, right? Which is the buttons or the images or the text or all that sort of stuff. You don't see the research that went on, right? or the stakeholders chiming in with their business goals, and you have to navigate that. You don't see any of that work. So detailing it in this list hopefully brings people into the product development world a little bit,
Right.
so that anybody can do it.
Yeah. I think it also stops users, business owners. I say users, it's a habit.
It's a habit, right?
I think it also stops business owners from, trying to make the UI more fancy and
Yeah,
then going in and saying, okay, well, what do my users want?
100%, right? With the example we talked about earlier with the client thinking they wanted user experience and just wanted the UI. I think 90% of the problem with the UX industry is just the confusion between UX and UI. I think if people really understand that fundamental difference,
Yeah.
90% of problems will be solved.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I feel like if people had an idea of the difference between what the job titles meant, what is a
Mm,
UI designer? What is an ID,
yeah,
industrial designer? What is a concept engineer? What is a human factors engineer?
yes,
I think that would really change things a lot in terms of what clients expect.
yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, how does AI play? You spoke about the three Ps, but how does AI play a role in the hierarchy of needs? Does the order change at all? Does it remove any steps entirely, or does it add any steps?
yeah, so I think there's two ways um, to look at that. One is, how does AI affect the person creating the design, right? How does
Mhm.
it aid me make a better user experience? And the other way is, how can I use AI to almost add on like a chatbot or an implementation or something, right? So it's does it help me build, and how does it help the user experience? So for the business owner or the person building the 5 steps, I think it primarily helps in step 2 and 3, where you're defining the different user groups and when you're creating the different user flows. Summarizing data, AI is fantastic at currently today. AI is great at summarizing data, grouping it. I think even inside of FigJam, it has it built in where you
Mhm.
can just put a bunch of sticky notes and have them kind of affinity map it for you. So for someone who, didn't go to design school, doesn't know how to affinity map, just saying, hey, can you organize these ideas, and having the AI do it is extremely helpful. So that's where I would say on
Mhm.
back end it helps.
Okay. All right. That's useful. Are you using any of these tools currently?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
big fan of FigJam.
Okay.
Been using that for many years. And whenever I need to organize a bunch of qualitative data, comes in key role. I believe they partner with OpenAI for the AI inside of FigJam. And
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the ChatGPT environment. I use that a lot for generating ideas and summarizing data. So yeah, FigJam is fantastic at it already.
Yeah. AI is really good at generating ideas, like you said, and
Mm,
summarizing things. But then it's the human brain that goes in and says, that's not right, or
yes.
that's right, or that would never make sense.
Yeah, you still need a pilot. You still
Right.
have to be there and corral it a little bit.
Hmm.
Do I think that that will become less and less of a requirement as this proliferates? Yes, hopefully.
Hmm.
But right now, you still need to have someone that kind of knows the topic that the AI is helping you with. The same way, like if you were managing a team of designers, you don't necessarily have to know everything that each designer is doing, but you have to have some idea so you can kind of point them in the right direction if they get off course, right?
Right, right. And there's actually theories out there saying AI will get better at this,
Mm,
but it will never be without a human being or without a human UX
sure.
designer. And the reason is because it's impossible. I mean, so far, it's impossible to replicate the human consciousness and have it feel feelings. And so
Yeah,
there'll always be that little tail end of the decision making process where you need a human to come in and really feel what's going on and then make the next decision.
yes.
So, yeah. So I
I
guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tell our listeners you're going to have a job.
yeah, you'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
If I think what AI is doing in the user experience field is just lifting the bar of what's
Mhm.
expected for consumers, right?
Yeah.
The same way like a Squarespace or a Wix did with web design. It's not like it got rid of web designers. It's just
Mhm.
that now these business owners that don't have a design degree, they can make a website. The same way with AI and affinity mapping and helping with research, it's just lifting that bar. It's
Yeah.
giving a new demographic the ability to create a great user experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And thank you for sharing these methodologies
Of course.
and these approaches to thinking about design.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Happy to.
So now I'm going to ask you a question. It's a two-part question.
Okay.
So part A is, what suggestions do you have for UX professionals in this changing world, whether that be, suggesting skills they should be learning or suggesting new frameworks that they should use when they're approaching design problems?
Okay. Yeah. So two things as far as frameworks, other than the ones I'm providing in my articles, right, which I would
They're the
encourage.
best.
The keystone of everything for me is the double diamond process model proposed in, like, I don't even know when, by the British Design Council. I
Yeah.
follow that very strictly. The only change that I would make with using this process model is just changing the verbiage a little bit so you don't confuse people. So the third step in the classic double diamond is develop, with really in user experience that looks like designing. So I just changed that to design. And then when you're delivering, they wanted it to be all D's, so they put deliver as the fourth one. I would just change that to implement, just to clear confusion. So we have discover, we have define, we have design, and then implement. I think
Okay.
that is the baseline for all of this. If you can have that as a guide for the entire project, you're gonna be well above people who aren't using it. And then the other thing, which there was an entire book written on this concept, people underestimate the power of checklists and having a proven system and being able to just go A, B, C, D, E. In the world of user experience, it does change from project to project, right? You can't have, okay, I'm going to do 3 user interviews and then I'm going to send out 1 survey, and it just doesn't work, right?
Right.
But you can still have high level goals. This is kind
Mhm.
of what I was talking about earlier with when a client comes in. You want to talk to the users to get all of the user goals, and you want to talk to the business owner to get all their business goals, and then create objectives off of that and create statistics off of that. I think if you can incorporate that into the projects that you're working on, again, I feel like I've said this too many times, but you're going to be well above your peers, because right now in the industry, it is very common to just kind of almost work backwards at the end of the project and figure out, oh, I guess I gained this advantage and I guess I made this positive for the business, instead of setting it up on the onset and saying, here's what we're going to do for you.
Are you talking about establishing a traceability between what your user goals are and what the business's goals are? Is
Somewhat.
Okay.
It's really, I think I went on a little bit of a ramble, but fundamentally it is
Oh, ramble on. That's what this is for.
fundamentally it is just create a checklist for what you want this project to accomplish
Mm.
and then stick to that. That's really it. Do that, follow the double diamond, read a few of my articles if you want. Those are my tips.
Okay. And that will get us through the waters of AI, right?
Yes. Yeah,
The
hopefully.
stormy waters of AI. Okay. And I think that's really useful, because I think what's gotten a lot of UX designers in a fix right now is that they don't understand words like neural network and they don't know how to
Mhm.
code. And so, it's good to have that one thing you can hold on to and
Yes.
say, I have this technique and I can move forward with it. I don't have to go and learn how to code.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Right. And what messages, or you use a lot of AI tools.
Yes.
So, what messages or suggestions do you have for software professionals, AI ML experts who are developing AI products and AI tools, if any?
Oh yeah, sure. So this will be mostly for people that work on front end, right? As back end, follow DevOps, work on security. That's not really my specialty. But if you're touching the front end, if you're touching the user interface, the most simple thing you can do, again, is figure out what the people who are going to be using your software, want to do,
Mhm.
and then start creating the software or create the interface. Don't, go straight into Bootstrap and just start dragging in buttons and make it work. Really figure out, what am I building? Why am I building it? Who am I building this for? And then build it.
Yeah. You're asking them to wear the UX hat for a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Even if,
Yeah.
even if
Yeah.
like you send out a survey on Google Forms and get 20 people to give their feedback,
Yeah.
that is better than nothing. We'll take
Right.
that.
And it's getting easier and easier. In episode 1, I had the CEO of a company called ResearchGoat
Yes.
on. And he's got a super easy interface that you started an AI company in your apartment or in your studio.
Yeah.
You can just recruit users online, the AI does the study for you, and then it comes back and tells you, what the summary was. Of course, that's nowhere as, you need a human to do a deeper analysis,
Sure.
but that's a good place for someone to start if they don't have the funds or if they don't have the time or even the willingness to go out and do an entire UX study. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
How can a UX team or business find you, Andrew?
Well, through my articles, I think I have my contact information on my Medium. Otherwise, my email is andrew@designforhumans.io. Whether you want to hire us, you have a question, you made something cool and just want to send it to me, my inbox is open all the time. I get really excited about this stuff. So if you just want to show me something or talk about something, send it my way.
Oh, that's great. And I believe that, Andrew, because I know that you're always open for conversations and you have a lot to share every time.
Yes.
And at what point in the product development process do you support clients? So I know you probably do everything from user needs all the way to product release, but at what point should a business consider approaching you?
Yeah. So we've handled everything from creating MVPs to pitch to venture capital to, giant 100 million businesses that just need a user experience upgrade. So we do all that. The thing that we do not do, we are not full service in the way that we are not great at marketing. We're not great at SEO. We're not great at maintaining a website and creating new pages long after release. We really specialize in the 4 steps of user experience. And past that, we have partners we work with, so we can point you in the right direction. But that's not our specialty. So if you're listening to this and you have a project or you run a business and you're looking to improve your user experience or create an MVP to pitch to shareholders, we would love to help. And you can send an email on the website, or you can book a free consultation straight on designforhumans.io.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. And I hope that everything goes well, and I hope to keep talking to you, and congratulations. This is a huge, huge feat.
Yes, thank you. It was great talking to you.
Great talking to you too.